In this video, I'm gonna teach you how to have more self-control with food. So for myself, I used to binge eat. I was a binge eater, sugar addict for like the first 20 plus years of my life. And I've now coached hundreds of people through this. And when it comes to self-control, there's three major pillars I like to think about. The first one is the actual food that you're eating. Number two is your emotional regulation, your ability to regulate your emotions and your ability to manage stress. Number three is your current diet habits, your current habits with food that we get programmed in, and then we're just kind of running on autopilot. So those are the three: what you're eating, your emotional regulation, and your current habits with food. So let's start with the first one. Okay, you're the type of food that you're eating. So many of us can get in this shame spiral, like, oh, I should be able to moderate. We're told everything in moderation, and then we go to eat something and it feels like, I know for myself, just like completely out of control with it. Start eating the bag of chips, it's gone. Start having one cookie, now I want 300. Like, there's certain foods though that, and then feel so much shame, and then go into like the guilt spiral, shame spiral. Ugh, I can't believe I did that. I have no self-control. Now I'm gonna restrict, and then go into that loop cycle. And so to break out of that is to recognize that most of the food on our store shelves are highly processed, hyper palatable foods. They are chemically engineered to get us addicted. So to release the shame that anything is wrong with you or broken in you, if you are more susceptible to these addictive foods based on maybe a lot of stress that you have going on, you might have had parents who use food to cope, to numb. I know like all the women in my family, that is just a generational thing. And so to use food for when we're anxious, when we're overwhelmed, and that's going to be in that pillar too with the emotional regulation. But I just want to say that there's certain foods that we may be more susceptible to getting addicted to and to binging on. And so to not compare yourself with someone who may not have that, they may not have the stimulation that you get from eating that one cookie that just sparks into this like, oh my gosh, I need 700. But a lot of people do. A lot of people do. These foods, again, are chemically engineered. I love this book. It's called Sugar, Salt, Fat. I think it's by Michael Moss. And he talks about how the salt, like on Doritos, it's chemically engineered into this cage-like structure. It's not like normal table salt. It's got this cage-like structure that's hollow in the middle. So the second it hits your tongue, it dissipates. And then you want another bite. Ooh, give me another bite. So it's literally like they know how to get us. They want us to, and I say they, the food industry, and to buy their products. I mean, I don't know that it's out of like they want us to be obese and they want us to be unhealthy, but out of a money-driven business, like want their successful business, like how can we make these as addictive as possible? Keep people coming back. You know, Pringles, like once you pop, you can't stop. That's not a joke for many of us, especially when we're stressed out. So to give yourself the grace of like seeing these foods not as like I can't eat them or I'm bad if I eat them. It's like these are data points. When I eat this food, chips, ice cream, I go overboard. Like that's the patterning that's happening. These foods do this to my nervous system. You can eat them all day long. You can like allow yourself that I can have them, but do I want this cycle to continue? Do I want to feel like this? I know when I start eating this certain food, this is the behavior that happens. And so certain foods, again, the hyper palatable foods, and the more we eat them, the more we want them. And the more, it's called down regulation, every time we eat something like a chip or ice cream, it gives us a huge surge of dopamine. Dopamine is one of our pleasure neurotransmitters, hormones that lights up the pleasure sensor in our brain, and it feels good. And it's like that itch for the next bite. It's like that like getting to scratch an itch. And like, so you eat a bite and the dopamine surge and it's like, oh, look, give me another. Well, with hyperpalatable foods, processed food, we get a huge dopamine hit every time. It's like whoosh, every time. And we're not getting the satiation signals from our body that's telling us we're full. We're not getting the normal hormonal responses. Plus, most of these foods are completely devoid of nutrients. So we're not even getting our nutrient needs. So our body's like craving calories to get nutrients, but we're just giving it empty calories. And if you compare eating a chip with eating like a piece of steak. So if you're hungry in the beginning, you know, you take that first bite, you get a dopamine hit for both of them. This tastes so good. I'm so hungry. And then with the steak, yeah, you may get another dopamine hit the second bite, and then it slowly starts to come down. You get less and less of an urge to want that next bite. It just steps down because you're getting satiated. You're getting nutrients, you're getting your hormones. We have a hormone called leptin that is our satiety signal. So we're getting leptin signaling to the brain, like, hey, I'm full. So it's just every bite, like, how many times I can eat a lot of steak. I love steak. But like, there is a point where you just like don't want anymore. When it comes to, that's an actual like physical, I don't want anymore. When it comes to things like chips or things like Oreos, chocolate, for me it was chocolate. Hershey Kisses, to be specific, used to go through bags of them. So I also want you to know, if you're listening to this, like, you are not alone. Oh my gosh, like, so many people have issues with food or really struggle with food, and people you may never expect. Like, I've coached these like fit men or like women, just like women that like look very fit, but like they are just having such a struggle with binging. It's all over the spectrum. Anyways, back to what I was saying. When you eat when you eat something like the chocolate, you get this huge dopamine hit. And then guess what? The next bite comes, you get a huge dopamine hit. Next bite comes, huge dopamine hit. Like, you just keep getting these huge hits. Whereas the steak that was coming down, these foods, it's like there's no depletion in that dopamine until like you get to a point where just cognitively you're like, I've eaten way too much. Oh my gosh. But it doesn't mean that your physical body, even though it may be like physically distended, full, still wants that next bite, still is craving more. But the only reason you stop is either guilt, shame, or just the cognitive awareness, like, oh my gosh, I've eaten 3 bags of Hershey Kisses. And so there's a different hormonal response with these foods. And so to break free from like the calorie mantra of like, just watch your calories. We can calculate our calories all day, but if we're eating foods that we're not getting satiated from, that are giving us these huge dopamine surges, so we're just constantly craving all the time. And then we blame ourselves for feeling out of control. But it's not it. It's that our hormones are jacked up, our mental, our nervous, our neurochemical responses are jacked up, and we're addicted. We're addicted to those loops, not to mention the next pillar, the stress and everything that's happening in life that directs us to go want those hits of dopamine. And so just a recap, or the action from this to gain more self-control is to pay attention to what you are eating, to add more real food, more satiating foods, because then it's going to give you so much more ability to consciously eat. Or you don't feel like you're constantly going after next bite because your body's actually able to regulate and feel satiated. And your taste buds will change. So what's so beautiful is that when you get off of hyperpalatable processed food, your taste buds become so much more sensitive to the flavors in real food, and then start craving that. And real food just tastes so much better, and you don't need to add, like, I know I used to have to add like brown sugar to my sweet potatoes, or get like 2 pumps of caramel in a sugar-free caramel latte. And like, no, like, black coffee tastes awesome. Maybe even adding some full-fat coconut milk, like, that tastes awesome. Sweet potatoes by themselves are so sweet. Fruit tastes so sweet. And when you don't eat it all the time, and then you do eat it, it feels like such a treat. And so just to let yourself wean off of the processed food, and then you won't miss it. And then when you do have it, it's like certain occasions where you can slow down and observe your patterning with it. And if it starts to become, create a lot of cravings in you, if it starts to become a problem, then you just kind of abstain for a little bit. Let yourself reset, let your taste buds come back, let your cravings die down, and get back to just eating real whole foods. So this is part 1 of this little 3-part series. You can connect with me on Instagram at Mindful Belly, or check out my podcast. It's called Don't Eat Your Feelings with Mindful Belly. Or if you need coaching, if you are looking for accountability, guidance, and support on your sugar addiction, binge eating, or just your health journey, reach out. You can set up a free strategy session with me at calendly.com/mindfulbelly. And that's in the description below.